$124 million. That's what Silicon Valley handed a checkout button. In its best year, that button brought in $600,000. Less than a single coffee shop in Manhattan makes in a year. 6 days after the real number got out, the company was dead. This is the file on Fast, the one-click checkout app run by a 29-year-old Australian named Domm Holland. And here's the detail almost nobody remembers going in. Holland had already run one company into the ground before Fast even had a name. Nobody who wrote him a check seemed to think that mattered. Quick note before we go further. This is general education, not personalized financial advice. Go back to Australia, 2018. Holland's first company was called Tow, an app that dispatched tow trucks the way Uber dispatches cars. It processed more than $50 million in its short life. It also collapsed, owing 5.7 million Australian dollars, mostly to small towing operators who never got paid. A court found Holland personally wasn't on the hook for the debt. But the pattern was already sitting there in public records. Move fast, spend big, let someone else absorb what's left. Then he moved to San Francisco and rebuilt himself completely. New country, new story, same instinct. Holland was young, charming, and relentless. He'd already won awards back home for it. And in Silicon Valley in 2020, that combination was worth more than a track record. Fast promised something every online store wanted. Checkout in one click, no typing your card number twice, no lost sales at the last screen. Stripe backed the idea early, $20 million in 2020. A year later, Stripe came back and led $102 million more. Index Ventures signed on. So did Addition, Susa Ventures, and a handful of funds that had made real money picking winners before. By the count that mattered to headlines, Fast had raised $124 million. By the count that should have mattered more, almost nobody outside the company had asked how much of it was coming back in. Some of Fast's own recruits got a peek at a spreadsheet during hiring, one they were told was restricted to a chosen few. It modeled the company's future in 3 scenarios: $750 million on the low end, $12 billion on the high end. Engineers signed offer letters on the strength of a number that wasn't a forecast. It was a fantasy with decimal points, and the company spent like the fantasy was already true. Corporate retreats to Tampa, Honolulu, Denver, New York. Executive offsites that read more like music festivals than budget meetings. At one industry conference, Fast paid $1 million to book the chain smokers for a single set. Here's the part that should have been the tell if anyone was following the actual dollar instead of the story. Follow one shopper through the pitch. They land on a store's checkout page. They see the Fast button. In theory, one tap and they're done. No card number, no address form. That's a real problem worth solving. Stores lose customers on that exact screen every single day. But almost no stores actually installed the button. And on the ones that did, almost no shoppers tapped it. The product Fast was raising money to sell barely touched a single transaction. So the revenue stayed almost nothing. Everything around the revenue kept growing anyway. Headcount, office space, press coverage. All of it ballooning around a hole nobody was pointing a camera at yet. On March 29th, 2022, a small outlet called The Information published the number Fast had spent 2 years not saying out loud. Total revenue for all of 2021, $600,000. Total monthly burn, around $10 million. On some days, the entire company did about $2,000 of business. Less than a food truck, not a hedge fund, not a whistleblower. A reporter asking the one question $124 million apparently never had to answer. How much of this is real? That's the whole trick, laid bare in one sentence. A company can look unstoppable right up until somebody asks for the one number the story was never actually about. If you're the kind of person who wants the real number before the headline gets to it, that's this channel. Hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me which company should go under the light next. Subscribe and leave a comment to help our channel grow. Because the moment that number went public, Fast didn't have weeks to fix it. It didn't even have one. The day after the story ran, Fast was already telling staff layoffs were coming. 2 days after that, the company brought in Morgan Stanley. Not to raise money anymore, to find someone willing to buy what was left. 6 days after the article, on April 5th, Domm Holland told his employees Fast was shutting down for good. Here's the detail that didn't make most of the headlines. A month before that announcement, Fast's own co-founder and chief operating officer, Allison Barr Allen, had quietly been removed from the company's official filings, according to later reporting. No note to the staff, no warning. Just gone from the paperwork, weeks before anyone else found out the company itself was going. Somebody already knew. 450 people lost their jobs that week. 150 of them were engineers who joined on the strength of that $12 billion spreadsheet. Stock options that were supposed to be worth millions were worth exactly nothing. And the investors who'd handed over $124 million, Stripe, Addition, Index Ventures, and the rest, watched most of it disappear with the company. Nobody in that boardroom ever forced the one conversation that mattered. Show me this year's actual revenue before I sign the check. That's the pattern behind every rocket ship that turns out to be empty when you look inside it. Ask for the number your hype is standing on, not the story. Remember Tow, the towing app. $5.7 million owed to drivers who never got paid. Same founder, same instinct, just a bigger number this time, and better known names writing the checks. The people who'd built careers finding the next unicorn got fooled by the exact same thing a total beginner would have fallen for. A good story, told with total confidence by someone who'd already proven he'd do it once before. If Stripe and Index Ventures didn't ask for the number, would you have? If this file taught you one thing you can actually use, hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe and leave a comment to help our channel grow. New files coming very soon.